hyper personalization or personalization in general has been this like buzzy word that people love to talk about. And I think a trend is that we're going to be seeing people getting smarter about how to leverage events, because I feel like that is going to be a huge unlocker and differentiator for people who are successfully leveraging an event-led growth strategy and people who are not. I'm Camille Arnold, and this is Checked In. Welcome back, friends. 2025 may be well underway, but it is never too late to evaluate your event strategy. We need to keep our pulse on what's working and what's not so we can tweak, shift, or pivot as needed. Because at the end of the day, no matter what your event program goals are, you're probably aiming for better ROI. So how can you turn that wish into a reality? In this episode, we get into how to build and assess your strategy, how to show that your events drive meaningful business results, and what you can do to beat attrition, balance creativity with data, and what it means to future-proof an event-led growth strategy. Let's go ahead and get checked in.
My name is Haley Kaplan, and I am on the experiential team here at Splash, and I'm so thrilled to have you join today's virtual discussion. We are going to be diving deep into event strategies that set you up for success this new year. We're going to explore how you align your events with business goals, define success metrics, optimize your event mix, and share proven tactics to show ROI. Everyone is buzzing with vision boards and those like ins and outs list. So here's my take. An out for this year, I think it's running events for the sake of just running events or to check a box. What's in this year, I think, is leveraging your events as a strategic marketing channel to hit those business goals, drive pipeline, and fuel that revenue growth. Because when events are executed strategically, they truly become powerhouse tools for driving connection, trust, engagement, and of course, some serious unlocked pipeline and revenue. And that's what we're here to cover today. We've got some truly amazing experts in the house, and I'm so grateful that they lent their time to come join us today to chat through these topics. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to bring up Kristen Vesey, who is the Senior Field Marketing Manager from Ramp, and our very own Director of Experiential Marketing here at Splash, Camille Arnold, onto the stage with me to kind of spill the tea on what they think an event strategy that drives pipeline and boosts ROI will look like this year. And I cannot wait to hear what they have to say. So without further ado, if I can welcome Miss Camille Arnold and Kristen Vesey to the stage with me, we're going to start chatting through some event strategies to how you can unlock pipeline in 2025. Hello, how's it going? Thank you for joining us. Nice to see you, Camille and Kristen.
Hello.
Thanks for having us, Haley. I feel like I can speak for Kristen as well. Super excited to be here. And I'm just pumped to be back on the virtual stage with you, Haley. It's been a minute for me.
It has been a minute for sure. Camille was our resident host of these Tofu webinars for a very hot minute, and then she went on maternity leave and brought in beautiful Charlie May to the world. And this is her first time back on our virtual stage. So welcome back, Camille. So happy you're here. So happy you're here too as well, Kristen, of course.
Of course. Glad to be here.
Awesome. I would love if you both could just share a bit about your background and how you got into the position you're in currently so that our audience just gets to know you a bit more. So Kristen, I'd love for you to go first, and then Camille, I'll have you next.
Yeah, happy to do so. So I'm Kristen Vesey. I lead our field marketing here at Ramp. But I found my way into the world of events haphazardly, had a long history in marketing. I kind of really launched my career as actually a producer, working with like designers and animators. And then I moved over to TED Talks, where I spent a good amount of time building out a learning management system there. And I was the first marketer basically utilizing TED Talks to create educational materials, and businesses were a big proponent in that. And so kind of like learned on the ground, like how to do marketing, pivoting that like relationship from production into events, and webinars were actually my first avenue in. So yeah, I stayed in the world of education technology for a long time. And now I'm over at Ramp, which is more on the fintech side, and really excited to be sort of at like a high growth startup where events are a real key pillar of our pipeline.
I love that. What a cool background and experience to have your perspective today.
Yeah,
of course.
I love that. Over that intersection of education and events makes total sense. A great way to educate people in general is to bring them together for an event.
Of course. Yeah.
And Camille, yeah.
Gosh, I've been with the Splash crew for going on 7 years now. Prior to that, my career really started in the music industry. I ended up getting into events really through brand activations and event production that way. And then found a way to get out of the music industry, which I still love to this day, but needed to spread my wings a little bit, landed in the tech world. And at Splash, I've been in a number of different roles, from executive business partner, working really closely with our former CEO and co-founder, to being a communications manager on the marketing team, and then stepping into director of experiential marketing a few years ago, working closely with Haley, who's hosting today, and Chelly, who's backstage as well. So I've seen the whole gambit of events, from producing events for brands to then coming in-house, building out our event strategy from scratch. I feel like this is a safe space, right? We can say this is a safe space. And I can share that even Splash in its inception didn't necessarily have a cohesive event-led growth strategy. So being able to really build that out for the company has been one of the things I've been most proud of in my career. And now being at the forefront of being able to preach the gospel along with Haley about event-led growth as a powerful driver of business growth is something I'm really passionate about, not only to benefit companies, but also to benefit the marketers who are leveraging this kind of strategy and helping them up level in their career, because I love collaborating with other marketers and just helping them solve whatever problems they may be facing.
So I feel like we can get started into kind of the meat and potatoes of our discussion, which I feel like the best place to start is reflecting on 2024 and looking towards how you're looking to build your strategy in 2025. So Kristen, I want to kind of start with you, because you mentioned that like events are a big pillar at Ramp and you guys love using them. So looking back on 2024, what was one of the biggest challenges you faced with your event strategy? And from that, what lesson did you learn or take away from that you want to bring into this year?
So this past year has been all about testing and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. I always tell my team, like, if you find something doesn't work, it's just as valuable information. And I love being in an environment that actually facilitates that and leaves it. I think one thing that's 50 and learning about the year is that historically we have had to basically put together brand new processes. As you imagine, it's a challenge, right? What's the new process? How do we test different event types? And then really building conviction. I think with sales team and leadership team, while they were hiring an events team, I don't think they knew really like what that would mean. And so I think the challenge has been building trust with those people, making sure that like they actually see the value that the events program can bring in.
You are not alone in that challenge. I feel like that's probably something that a lot of people here face, of like, we know these work. You have to trust us. You have to believe in that.
I think whether your event or like events channel or event marketing strategy or event-led growth strategy, whatever you want to call it, is relatively new for your organization, Kristen, I don't think that the kind of testing and iteration and experimenting, that the need for that ever goes away, because you have to just be mindful that buyer expectations are going to be constantly shifting. The needs of your customers may be constantly shifting. And so to meet business objectives and like, stay aligned with business objectives, you need to constantly be reevaluating your event programs and ask yourself that tough question of like, is what we're doing actually moving the needle? Is it working? Are we having an impact on the business? Where are the gaps in our funnel? Yeah. And how can we fill them with really well curated event programs that are meeting the needs and expectations of your target audience? So yeah, I totally respect that is a challenge. And also, to your point, just like maintaining buy-in, getting buy-in from other stakeholders in your organization, and then maintaining that trust, maintaining that alignment, maintaining that buy-in is both of those things, the testing and iterating and the making sure you're kind of one team, one dream with the rest of your revenue leaders and organizational leaders are kind of like always on challenges, I think. So I can definitely relate to that. In 2024, we launched some new programs, some new event programs. And so for sure, learning from what didn't work as much as we're learning what is working is super valuable to us. And we're applying those learnings this year. Something specific that I could speak to would be our strategy for conferences and trade shows. So I think most marketers can relate to feeling constrained. Even if you have, relative to another organization, a huge budget, you always want more. You always want more money to take your events and your programs to the next level. And within our budget constraints that we were facing and the barrier to entry, that the cost to exhibit at a conference or trade show is pretty high these days. And so we were finding that leaning into wraparound events, ancillary activations was the best spend of our budget. But then on the flip side, we were struggling to really stand out amongst the other wraparound events and ancillary activations happening alongside a major conference or a trade show, because that space is just super saturated. Everyone has figured out you need to do something at the conference, on the trade show floor if you have a booth, but you also have to activate in smaller, more intimate settings with your customers and your prospects. And so standing out was like something we were like, oh man, that's really hard. How do we actually drive attendance? And so something that we started to realize halfway through the year and are continuing to lean into this year is really leveraging partnerships, right? Like partner events, partner activations.
That's a huge unlock.
Overlap in our ideal customer profile, overlap in customers or prospects that we're targeting, and we can join forces. It's easier on your budget. And we found that we're getting more of the right people in the room. So that was definitely a big learning for us last year that we're taking into this year.
Yeah, I think off of that, like if 2024 was about building conviction at Ramp in the event side, I think this year is about expanding and recognizing that events can touch multiple different parts of the funnel. And I know we're going to get into this later in the conversation, but historically we have measured success really all on like lead generation, and like there's a lot of value in having an event mix that like touches different parts of the funnel. And we've actually started to do our measurement that actually like represents that, and being able to, maybe show up really big at a conference, but then how do you actually take them down and like create, closed one? How do you see that impact long term?
Yeah. Double tapping on what you just mentioned with event mix. I would love if you can walk us through kind of what that's been shaping up to look like. How are these different event types fitting into your overall strategy? And like, what types of events or activations are you thinking about for the more top of funnel, bringing them in, and then like how they go down through the funnel to become closed one? I would love to dig a little deeper into what your event mix is looking, Kristen, this year.
Yeah. So we find a lot of success in our large, like what we call third-party events, our conferences, trade shows that we show up at, especially within like our ICP, which is like financial owners and operators. We think it's like great to just like literally choose an event, show up really well, send an army of SDRs out there. And the sales team loves it because they're like, oh my God, these are all these amazing people that we can talk to. So in terms of like filling the funnel, like those are really successful for us. As well, like some of our thought leadership webinars are reaching 1,000+ people, and that's really amazing, especially when we're partnering with like community influencers, so people in the finance world. It's building conviction that like Ramp actually can be a speaker in the world of modern finance. So in terms of like, top of funnel, those have been really successful. But as I was talking about this year, we're really trying to represent a very holistic event program that touches everyone. And so we've been really focusing on building out more field initiatives as well that really accelerate pipeline. So getting mostly on mid-market and enterprise, but getting some really like high value people in intimate experiences. And that is interesting because I always talk to the sales team about like, what's a great event for you for like pipe acceleration? And it is sometimes the splashy events, the Michelin star dinners, the sports suites. But at the core of it, it's really about creating an environment where our sales team or our executive leadership team can have a one-to-one interaction with these people that they're cold calling all the time or trying to get in touch with or whatever, creating the environment for cross collaboration across our partners and customers and prospects. builds our reputation a little bit by showing that people actually like the product that we work on. And then we do have a whole series of community events. So I feel so gracious that the Ramp team in New York, we actually have a HQ that like has an event space here. So we are frequently inviting the community of finance leaders, everything down from founders through like people who are engineers. And so that's sort of more on the customer side, like bottom and post funnel. So that's sort of how we think about the mix of events.
I could not love that more. And I love the way that you just explained it all. It was just made so much sense. And it was just brilliant. And I'm excited to see how it all plays out for you and your team this year. And I also love that you mentioned bottom of funnel, post funnel, because as much as events are getting people in and bringing them through an accelerating pipeline, continuing and growing pipeline is a great source of events. And so I love that, something your team taps into as well.
We're building out more of a customer event arm, but right now, even some of our virtual events, like we'll tap someone to come to a virtual event as a speaker or come to an event in our office. And it's, yes, sometimes we see like the upsell, cross-sell on our dashboards for measurement, but most of the time it's really just keeping them in the community of Ramp and making sure that they're like evangelists for the brand.
Yeah, I absolutely love all of that. Another quick follow-up brain pick kind of question. When you're thinking about all of these different ones, from like getting people into like filling that funnel at those top of funnel events, and then like as they move through, how are you coming up and setting goals for those specific event types in the mix? How kind of are you deciding what success looks like for them? And are there certain stakeholders? Like I know the cross collaboration between sales and marketing, CX is really integral for so many of those MOFU, BOFU post event stages. Are they all involved in shaping the goals, or is it mostly like your team and the demand center coming up with the goals for these events?
In terms of goaling, to kind of embrace this like whole funnel of events marketing, we actually goal against 3 pillars, which is lead generation, pipe acceleration, and brand awareness. We kind of have like a sneaky fourth, which is partner activation, which is basically tracking the referrals from a partner. So in terms of like goaling, all events fit within that funnel and or within those goals and to different percentages. But in terms of getting alignment, I think that's something really interesting here. We are frequently asked, of course, to support the goals and objectives of different teams. That can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. An example, this might be the growth org is really curious about trying to experiment with a new persona, like a verticalized persona, but hey, our SDRs still need to hit their quota. So we really work deeply across our sales leadership and our finance team to make sure that we're still building pipeline and having those tried and true types of events, but then we're also testing new initiatives and making sure that that all sides are somewhat happy. It's not always possible, but
it's very hard to do. So I love that there's such cross collaboration amongst your org for those. Camille, I'd love to hear your perspective too on the Splash event mix, very similar to Kristen's as well, that I would also love to hear a bit more from your side on how you're thinking about the event mix for our team.
As Haley said, it's not too dissimilar to what Kristen just described. I really consider our events team, event marketing, experiential marketing, we're full funnel marketers, right? A huge part of our job is not only to support the marketing team hitting our marketing goals, but to support other revenue teams in their goals. So sales, CX, we don't have endless budget. So how are we going to maximize the budget that we do have and design our priorities to align with the highest level business objectives? To echo what Kristen said, our trade show and conference strategy and then our top of funnel webinars are really effective at reaching and being able to touch both prospects and customers. Obviously, webinars or other virtual experiences that we host are really great at getting around any geo constraints that you might have, curating impactful conversations like this one, which can reach a really broad audience regardless of where they're located, is one tactic that we lean into heavily. And then to balance that, because virtual experiences are not only cost effective and great, but they can never replace that in-person magic that you get from connecting with someone face to face, like Kristen said, those one-to-one moments where you can actually develop real trust with someone and get to know them and more deeply understand their pain points so that you can help nurture them through their own buying journey. Our trade show and conference strategy, coupled with our field marketing strategy, where we can go in market, we can be a little bit more specific in terms of who we're curating these experiences for. Trade shows and conferences are, again, wonderful and should absolutely be a part of your event mix because it's a top of funnel play and it can help you with anyone who's in the middle or bottom of the funnel. It's really a full funnel tactic, in my opinion. And then more curated, bespoke field marketing experiences, set up a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner or some other type of experience that, again, is still building trust. It's giving them a wonderful experience and helping them to continue that journey with you. And by the way, in between, hopefully they're attending your webinars and consuming other pieces of content that you're producing for them. When we go to a conference or trade show, to be honest, like having a booth at a trade show, sure, you can have on-site demos. I'm not saying don't do that because there will be some people who are ready, they are either already familiar with your brand, maybe they're in the middle of the funnel. And so, boom, you catch them on site. It's the right time, right place. You can grab them aside and do an on-site demo. That's awesome. Do that. But if they're not in the market to buy, which we know the data is showing us that most of our audience is not actively trying to buy right now, right? So we need to nurture them. We need to give them that thought leadership. We need to help them. And how can we help them? We can help them by teaching them something that they didn't know. We can help them by connecting them to someone that they didn't know. And ultimately, that's going to help them be better at their job. It's going to help them be more successful in their role. So before you try and shove a demo down their throat, honor the fact that you have their attention and meet some higher need that they have, which again, why do people attend events? They're looking for a connection to a person, or they're looking for a connection to a new thought, a new idea, a new solution that's not necessarily going to be immediately tied to your product. Maybe it is, or your service, but it's going to help them be more successful in their role. And so I think that is the differentiator for your events, is like that needs to be the hook. And yes, a flashy dinner at a Michelin star restaurant is awesome, but that's not really enough to keep someone, right? You might get them to your event once, but how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them coming back for more, where they ultimately turn into a buyer or ultimately renew their contract with you if they're already a customer? There has to be more to the value proposition there. So I don't know, Kristen, if you have thoughts. I see you nodding.
Yeah, I'm grinning ear to ear because I believe in the side of marketing where it's like giving the gift. And maybe that's from my experience at TED. What is the why? And people are actually coming to you. They're not coming to you for a sales pitch. Like that's the last thing. And actually, I think that sometimes that turns people off from wanting to work with you and your organization. And so any time where you can provide that gift of knowledge, gift of connection, I think creates more meaningful interactions.
Totally. And another thought that you just sparked for me, Kristen, is taking a step back and remembering that the best way to nurture a relationship with a buyer is to be of service. Keeping that service mindset. There are a lot of ways you can do that. And if you're not sure how, I would say lean a little less into being self-serving for your organization, because I promise you it seems counterintuitive, but it actually works and people really appreciate it. So what could be the gift that you give through this event? What's the why? Why would someone want to attend? And how can you be of service to them? That's like the name of the game, I think.
I could listen to you two go back and forth all day. I'm so glad that you're both here to share such wonderful knowledge and insights. And I kind of want to like double tap a bit more into continuing the why and kind of nurturing the leads through. It's really wonderful that like this event gives a gift and that there's brand affinity and all of that. At the end of the day, you still have to prove that event was effective with metrics. So I'd kind of love to hear a bit more like tactically what your teams are doing to ensure that like post-event, once someone attends one of your events, wherever it falls in the funnel, kind of what you're doing to continue to nurture them, to drive pipeline and prove that, wow, that event was effective, like a bit more tactically, kind of what your post-event process looks like after an event.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first here. What you're doing after the event is largely going to be dictated by what you have set out as the goal for that event or that event program. And as I said before, the step before that is figuring out what are the most pressing business priorities or objectives and mapping your event programs to those objectives. That's how you're going to know what your goals for the event should be. And that's also how you're going to know what your key metrics for success should be. If it's a kind of legacy event program or initiative that you've been running, you probably have some historical data. So maybe you can look back and say, okay, we know in the past, these kinds of events generate X in terms of people raising their hand and asking for a demo or booking a meeting or turning into an opportunity or turning into actual closed won revenue. If it's a net new event program, then I would say set some target goals. As Kristen started off this whole conversation, know in the back of your mind that you're going to have to test and iterate. So you might set a goal, launch this event program, and see where you fall. How close to the goal are you landing? Then for the next round, because I will say, like, even if it's a flop, I have a story of an event program launching, and it was a flop, and we did not abandon it. Okay. We stuck with it. We tweaked, we fine-tuned. That also meant like setting internal expectations. I had to go to leadership and say, hey, we launched this program. Here were the results. Not what we wanted, not what we were expecting. Here's what we're going to do to change this program to effectively get different results. Here's the timeline of what that's going to look like. And we're going to check back in with you in a few months or in a quarter or two and tell you how we're tracking in terms of progress. But the metrics that matter are going to be dependent on your business. So I would say like your metrics for event success, if they don't ultimately tie back to business metrics, then you are missing the boat. And your events are operating in a silo, and it's going to be really hard to prove the value of your event programs, of the channel itself for events. And it's going to be hard to defend your budget for future quarters or for future years. If you don't know what those business metrics are, ask, find out, and then find a way to connect them to your event metrics. Of course, registration and attendance are event specific, and those are important. Those are like, I would say, leading indicators, right? But
the words out of my mouth.
I love it. We're on the same wavelength, Kristen. But for Splash, I would say for events, we're looking at hand raisers, right? So first we're looking at leads and contacts. Are we getting new people into our database or into the funnel? Hand raisers, right? Are they engaging with us? Are they saying they want to hear from us, from sales or from marketing, right? And then we're looking at conversion rates of the people who raised their hand when they were registering for this event and then attended the event. How many people are turning into an opportunity? What's the opportunity value size? How many opportunities? What's the win rate, right? And how much closed won revenue? And that closed won revenue is going to tell us what our event ROI, our return on investment was. So those are just some of the main metrics that we pay attention to at Splash. I think that it's really important to think about how your event strategy connects to other channels or tactics within marketing. Like I said earlier, we make sure our event strategy is closely aligned to our content strategy because, as I said, in between these really impactful moments where you're getting people to your events, whether they're virtual or in person, you need to be engaging with your buyers 365 days a year, right? So what are the other meaningful moments that you can curate for these people to push them along in their journey? Are they looking for a specific piece of content on a specific topic? Have that queued up, and you can use your events to get those answers, right? Events are one of the most powerful ways to get first-party data these days, right? That's the gold. Use that first-party data. get your people, your attendees, to tell them as much as you can about themselves, and then use that data to inform the rest of your marketing strategy, how you're going to nurture them, what sales needs to do to follow up with specific people. Don't forget the massive opportunity you have to capture first-party data and then leverage that to create really hyper-personalized experiences post-event that help that person in their buying journey and just deepening your relationship with them.
Yeah, I think any time that you can utilize information that you gather at an event to inform the next event or inform the deal and helping the sales team close that at a better rate is like gold, right? Like always be on the lookout for that information. Ramp is a very data-minded organization. We're in finance. We work with financial leaders all the time. And I think this challenge of the events team has been really figuring out how we can build our measurement within that model. There's a lot of metrics that the company cares about that don't necessarily translate to our roles, especially given like the deal cycles are so long. And like, how do you really quantify all these different touch points of impact? The name of the game here is partnership. We partner super deeply. Become best friends with your sales leaders. Become best friends with your Stratfin team. Oh my gosh. Have them help you develop what these which metrics are important, what your forecast should really look like. And it's been a big lesson for me in this role to figure that out. And how do we communicate to leadership the success of these types of events? I mentioned earlier that all of our events fit within some of these buckets. And generally, it's about pipeline. What business are you bringing in? And we've actually forecasted different event types to different efficiency models. Whereas like we know that an event that touches like more brand awareness is not going to necessarily bring in your $1 million deal that's total top of funnel. It might, and that could be great, but we have different efficiency, and basically like the lifetime value of that potential customer is rooted in how we measure the success. And while that can be really dry and kind of hard to wrap your brain around sometimes, what it's really helpful for is rooting your sales team in, hey, we're sending you to this event. This is what I need back in return. These are your goals. They're salespeople. They want these goals. They want these targets to match. And most of the time they gamify it and they come back and they crush those numbers. And it's great. But I think being able to, especially when you're testing, being able to set some sort of a target of, hey, this is the dollar SQL I'm looking for. This is the dollar close one that we're hoping from this. In our case, sometimes it's partner SQL. All of those metrics, I think, are essential, and follow through also to the post-event process. We look at our results in like a 30, 60, 90 window. So having real visibility into those numbers so that I can connect to the sales team and say, hey, we had this event 3 weeks ago and we're only at X percentage to goal. What are we doing to make that higher? Being a partner, keeping them accountable because they have a million different deals and our sales team is very hungry here, which is great, but helping orient and make sure that they're doing that follow-up, partnering with the MarTech team to make sure that all the leads are flowing properly. So yeah, leveraging the sales to understand what are those goals at the top of the event that you're doing in your kickoff calls so that they know, and then enabling them to do follow-up. That's on the sales marketing side. I think there's also the capital M marketing side where I'm partnering with our lifecycle team. How are we putting these people through a drip campaign? How can we personalize some sort of ABM strategy here, which is very early stages for us. We haven't quite gotten into that just yet. So yeah, thinking about how content can touch it as well. So it's more than just production. It's about end to end that like you're on the line for those deals, which is a lot, but also kind of like very rewarding, I feel.
Oh, I love it so much. Sorry, we're going to add something into Camille.
I just saw a question, how can we best equip sales to execute on that? When I was talking about like that hyper personalization and leveraging your events to capture really valuable first party data. Like most businesses, we have quite a large sales team, but a tiny marketing team. That's a great point. I would say there are a few ways that you can do this. And it depends on your mechanism for capturing that first party data. Of course, in your event registration, if you're shameless plug, using a tool like Splash, you can add in specific custom questions into your registration form that helps you learn about your attendees before they even get to the event. If you have an integration with your CRM, like a Salesforce, then you could map those custom questions into Salesforce and that is probably one of the easiest ways to empower sales to take action on whatever insights you're gathering through those custom questions, getting that first party data. But there's also more anecdotal data that you might capture from just an in-person conversation, right? You're at an event, you have maybe a small squad of people from your company helping you to host or run that event, and they're engaging with your prospects or buyers or customers. There's so much that you can learn from just having an offline conversation. So then how do you get those learnings into the hands of sales so that they can act on them? Anyone who's going to be on site for us, whether they're at a conference or a trade show or at a VIP dinner, if you are part of the on-site team, part of your responsibility is to capture notes from your conversations and then make sure you're logging those notes in. We use Salesforce for our CRM. You better make sure that is logged in Salesforce. If it doesn't get captured in Salesforce, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't happen. Yeah, exactly.
We also sometimes have had success doing like a post-event retrospective, like a document that's like,
Yep, we
this
do
is
that
not
too.
your kickoff document. Maybe it's the same part of it, maybe it's a different one, but basically where the team can go in and just give their like brain dump of notes, not necessarily into the leads, but also for like the quality of the event. How did it go? What did you think? How could we do better? You know, is this the right selection for the type of ICP that you're looking for? So that type of like back and forth communication with the sales team, I think, is essential.
Yeah, it's 2025, people. So there are a lot of different ways that you can use tools and technology to make this easier. A lot of tools, luckily, like integrate with each other these days. So I would say like it kind of depends on what your tech stack currently looks like for your organization.
So I just have like 2 quick questions for our speakers, and then we'll get to a couple of the Q&A. So we mentioned we're in 2025. Things are a bit different. I would love to know trends or innovations you're excited about this year to kind of bring into your strategy and explore a bit more with. So Kristen, I'd love to hear what you're doing at Ramp in 2025 that's exciting.
As a business, we are always trying to look for new tech innovations to help us do our job better. AI is like a huge part of our platform. So we're always looking for tools to do that. So as I mentioned, like we utilize Popple that allows us to score leads like on site. We are a Splash customer. So that is helping us improve the interaction with our with our prospects from first touch all the way through customer and, upsell, resell. Yeah. So I think that's been the hot trend. How can we just make it easier for our team to be able to track and report out on the success of our events?
I love that. There's so many things out there that make it significantly easier to do. It's a great trend to look forward to. Camille, do you have any trends or innovations you're excited about this year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's new because I feel like we've been talking about this for a while now, but I think hyper personalization or personalization in general has been this like buzzy word that people love to talk about. And I think a trend is that we're going to be seeing people getting smarter about how to leverage events to activate that personalization. And really, like I said before, it just comes down to being smart about how you're capturing and then leveraging that first party data. If you're struggling to like actually in the business metrics show that ROI from your events, maybe just start with like, look at all this really valuable data first party data that we are capturing from our events. Start there and then see how you can leverage that, because I feel like that is going to be a huge unlocker and differentiator for people who are successfully leveraging an event-led growth strategy and people who are not.
Could not agree more. Great little insight. And then last question from me, I would love if you would impart just like one piece of advice that you could give to our audience today for building an impactful future-proof event strategy in this year. You kind of both touched on it a bit with your innovation or trend, but do you have any parting piece of advice for our audience today? Camille, you can go first, and then Kristen, I'd love for you to tack on.
If you do nothing else, do everything in your power to make sure that your events are not operating in a silo. And that could mean doing a lot of internal educating on the power of events and an event-led growth strategy. Yeah, I think that's like the most important thing that you could do. And we've got a growing wait list of people marketers, hundreds and hundreds of marketers who are going to be taking our event-led growth certification course. And that's one of the things that you'll be able to do when you complete the course, among many other things, including like being able to understand how to measure the success from your events, how to build an event strategy from scratch. But yeah, just keep that close to your heart and remember that there's so much power in event-led growth if you wield that power correctly.
That's such a great resource. That's awesome.
Excited about that.
We'll put the link below where you can subscribe in a minute.
Yes. I'll keep it short and sweet. I think that the thing I would impart is build those relationships with your key stakeholders, build conviction, get some easy wins under your belt. I think that once you unlock that the organization sees the impact of events on building the brand, on building the business pipeline, all of that, a lot will unlock for you. So I once had a manager who I was like, do you have any advice in my first 90 days? And was like, get some easy wins under your belt. Show that this works. There is no shame in doing some of the more turnkey stuff. And once you do that, it'll unlock the trust that the organization will have in your program.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you so much, Camille. I cannot express how much I appreciate you both taking time out of your day. Absolutely wonderful. And you've got me so excited for 2025. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening to Checked In. To get connected and learn more, visit splashthat.com. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.